happens is that then the universe sees you are doing work. And remember, the whole universal exchange of this life is energy. It's the flow of what the work is. So that's why this world is totally obsessed with the work. So if universe and your karma sees you doing the work, then they're just going to allow you to continue that, because it's the hamster wheel.
Exactly.
That keeps everything else evolving.
Especially with the notion of like hard work, because then we like work hard for money, and then we say to the universe, every dollar that you then earn will be earned the hard way.
Yeah. So then what happens is then we totally get caught up in this whole scam of not being worthy, not being loved, not being fulfilled. And then that comes back into the whole theme of our bodies. So that's why, again, it comes to, if you are diabetic, you're lacking sweetness in your life, right? If you love carbs, it's because you want to be fulfilled in something. So you have the carbs and the pastas, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are feeling the whole lack of like drugs, it's because you're not feeling the energetic zing anymore. So you want a feeling.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's so true. It's really, and I think people like compartmentalize everything, where they're like, oh, like work is work and life is life and healing is healing, and they don't realize that it's like all integrated. You can't just like ignore one and expect the other one to just stay as it was. Like they all just cause and affect each other, like your body, your money, your happiness, your health. Like it's all one thing. Like you got to get everything streamlined. Literally.
And that's where I feel so many people are just robbing themselves. That's why we talk about the thief, right? We have this fool mentality that if we don't bear down and say what needs to be said, then we all of a sudden start creating this explosion at the end when we're not doing the work that we need to do, and then it's just 10 times harder to do and repeat or go back to that, or it's now deeper rooted in something else of a false reality for somebody, and then they totally have to be ripped apart, and then that's why we have these catastrophic experiences.
Oh God,
because you didn't nip it in the butt right at that time.
I know. And I meet sometimes like people that are like, oh, like I had this big breakdown and my whole world shattered, and it's like that was the only way that spirit or like your higher self could get your attention, because you were just going to railroad yourself forever.
Yeah. And I think so many people are just scared to just test their toe in the water and see that the water and the floor is right there.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's a big diving deep, I'm never going to make it reality out of it.
Or like people somehow believe that if they start following their dreams, it's going to be, what's that saying in business? It's 5 years before you actually start to profit. Like that's like not true. It's all stuff to keep you in your like comfort zone. And the universe, if you're willing to like have a little bit of faith in the universe always like shows up.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you don't have faith, what else is that going to be based on? Because there's no such thing as a currency that's going to be exchanged for the worth that we're all of.
Exactly.
And that's why so many people just don't, that's why people get very churchy or gaudy or ritualistic or, pushy on these things, because once they understand the simplicity of it, they're just trying to like get everybody else to understand it, but it's not people's time if they're not going to be a part of the process.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that doesn't matter. Blood, sweat, or tears, who you are related to or whatever, you cannot do that.
No. And there's that old saying, like, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And, like, at the end of the day, with your family or your loved ones, all you can say that you did was led them to the water. And if they want to fucking die of dehydration, then that's their problem. Like, you just can't make a horse drink water if it doesn't want to.
And I think so many people feel that guilt. But remember,
oh my God,
whenever we talk about these different emotions, this is 100% coming back from reflection. It's all mirrored. So the guilt that you are feeling as an empathetic person isn't yours to bear because it's something that they did and they can't process. So
that is fascinating.
Is they throw that shit on you and say, oh, sweetheart, your window looks really dirty.
Yeah, that's so true. And I am like such a not a victim. I personally victimize myself in that guilt. Like, someone wants to throw me a bag of guilt, I'll fucking carry it, it seems. God.
And that's where it's our responsibilities to get into the boot camp of understanding what are our triggers. And it doesn't make you a bad person because you're going to say no because you know that isn't safe for you to do it.
And I feel like something that I do, and I think a lot of people do, is like, I honestly believe that as you're sort of sifting through your triggers, that you should take a step back from the person triggering you. Because like, I'm going through that right now where I'm like, I thought I integrated that one trigger, and then it's like, but then it's just, there's always a new one, and then it seems like I almost undo my process. And if I could just get away from my family for a minute and like process through all of this shit, I could come back and be like more grounded and like deflect, or like at least be more aware. But like, I'm like on a research mission while also being triggered, and it's like, it's just too chaotic to sift through. And I feel like taking that step away to like do those deep dives is like really important.
Honestly, that is the number one reason why abusive situations turn out worse. That a situation that should have been solved with communication or understanding, it was a lack of, because no matter what it is, 10 out of 10, this is 100% fact, that you cannot heal in the same habitat as you are in victim state.
Wow.
Survival.
Amen to that. Yeah, that seems very
Okay.
true.
So it's this. This is how I've like broken it down for a rural roots experience, because all of us have such a hard time to escape, right? We don't have vehicles. It's a long distance. We have to be all limited underneath the farm or the household, or it's a collective account. So I don't have my own money or my own phone or my own space. And what happens is that it is like you going into an operation room that is full of toxins and bacteria, and it's sliced through the same last person that was septic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we keep just festering that whole entire thing until we have to amputate or disconnect so deeply, and then everything's just blown apart.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really great example.
Right? So in a farmer example of having a sick animal in that pen, they're not going to get better in mud and muck and extra work, because they're just going to constantly wear themselves out, that they fall apart and they die right at that place.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Wow.
It's different when you're young, and it's all those different spunky themes that everybody thinks you have. It doesn't matter if you are an infant on your deathbed, right? If that's already a septic environment, that's already going to be that purpose and that contract, and you're already internally exposed into that experience.
Exactly. Wow. And like, that's just something that, yeah, like honestly, that's the exact thing right now that like is fucking me up. It's like I've come so far, and then I think I've like made it far enough that I'm willing to like reintroduce the people that constantly trigger me, and then it's like I'm not obviously through it, because it just opens up and we like revert back to square one. And it's like, save yourself the hassle, because it's not worth it to repeat the same thing over and over. Just like take the distance. My God.
And I think so many people are just unsure of what the reality of the end is going to be. Am I going to be alone? Are they going to hate me? And am I going to be abandoned from that? Am I going to be dismembered from everything?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to even live at the end of that point of it? Because when you're in that pen, that habitat, that environment, that four walls, that totally segregates you into a mindset of thinking only the way that process happens. Right? It's like a job, you know, go team go, you know, every experience is that togetherness, so nobody knows how to remove themselves. And that's why when they see like Miss Independent Bitch, or Bachelor Asshole that doesn't think anybody's shit stinks, there is factors of that is safe and healthy, because that's the person experiencing in self. But that's where they talked about it in an interview and said, is your experience of selfness inclusive or exclusive?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, because you have to be the best version of yourself, so you have to do things that are specifically inclusive for yourself. But what's exclusive only with the people that are important and what you can share outwards after, it's not things that you're robbing yourself from.
Right. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Because like even in the Akashic records, I see sometimes people's healing is dependent on them making more meaningful connections with others. Like I'm one of those people that wants to just say, if you just ran away and lived in the bush and just were like, I'm going to do this for self-care, that it would be like the happiest time of my life. But I feel like it's not actually like that, because it would be of exclusive, like excluding myself from those parts of life. But fuck, would I like to make some bush friends or something, because I'm so tired.
Well, and honestly, that's the reality of why I had to take these like 30 plus days into this experience, because I knew that if I didn't isolate myself in a specific way, I wasn't going to allow myself to understand and hear what I needed to hear. And that's for my mind, my body, and my soul.
Fuck, I need to do this.
It is key. It's so key. And that's where when people laugh or take light about rehab, every single goddamn human being on this planet needs to go through rehab, because you have been externally programmed and you need to have this debilitating status of what you so think is your purpose, and your lack of, and your unworth, and all your unhappiness is 100% to be reprogrammed into understanding what was the root out of all of this.
And you know what's so crazy? Like when you say that, and I like have reflected on this a lot lately, because my guides are always asking me like, well, when were you the most happy or the most healthy or the like best version of yourself? And it was always when I just moved to a new city and I didn't know anybody, and I had nothing but months and months of time to just like listen to myself and do what made me happy without those little package of guilt where I'm like, oh, I should call my mom. Oh, I should really see my friend. Oh, maybe that this is what, you know, I should be doing as like a partner or a sister or a friend. Like, and it's like, fuck, like that noise gets so loud. And like, I was so happy when I was in those places and you were making like new friends, but they saw you as the best version of yourself. And they were like real amazing friends. Yeah. And like I long for that all the time, and I'm constantly like saying to Gray, I'm like, oh, we should move, we should move, we should move, we should move. Like I don't want to be here. I hate PA. And it's like, now that you say that, I'm like, that's exactly what it was. That was like my rehab, right? Like I just got to be with myself and do the healing that I needed, and every single goddamn time I was like the most healed and happy version of myself.
It's because we have innocence. We don't have any preconceived notions, judgments, angers, faults, traps, booby traps, whatever the case is.
100%. I always say that about this town. I was like, there's just all these ideas floating around in this city about who I am or who I was or who I'm expected to be, and I don't know how to escape them. And I don't do it, but those like, I feel like I'm just always kind of marching to the beat of my own drum, but like a day doesn't go by where someone doesn't compare me to who I was or what I should be doing. And it's honestly like, it's sickening. It makes me feel sick. Like,
so the upcoming retreat that we're going to do in October, the Rise Retreat, that one is where we're going to go into our internal community, and I got I was taught this by the teachers that I've been doing work through this past year, the Pathfinders, and it is about your inner community. So I literally had to go and make characters of all the different people that were in my self. So I have a person called the Lone Wolf. I have a person who's called the people pleaser. I have somebody called the Mrs. Gray. All these different categories of what my versions of myself are, because yes, you were that person at that time, but you have to acknowledge that that was the best state you were able to survive. And now when you thrive, you can't discredit the person that you had to be as that prisoner, as that fake, as that Molly maid, as that asshole. Because that is what creates your characters and your community, because it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
So if you had nobody else to show you those ways, you created a village within yourself.
Right. Wow, that's cool.
So that I wrote and created such a connection to what was all there, because I didn't have other external experiences than just damaged adults being monkeys and broken children. And that's all I had to work with. So I had to make up this, immaculate adult, persona. I had to make up this well put together representation of what a family in a rural community needed to have, right? I needed to be the right wife. I needed to be the right daughter. I needed to be the right-hand man, right? There was just so much shit that I just had to make up to fill for all the external voids that everybody else was lacking in the community.
Wow.
So as a child, that's why the fantasies and these dreams and these knowledges and these wishes and your wants and your desires truly all as an adult are fake, because that inner child made your plan and process because it was the innocence of what was already at stake.
Wow. And come to think of it, one of the personas that I've just recently started to shed out of is the helpful person, the person that wants to, because I had 3 younger siblings and a dad that wasn't really present in parenting, and then a mom that was extraordinarily overburdened. And then I was okay, I receive the best version, my inner child is I receive love when I'm helpful, when I'm considerate of others and pitching in. So I've had to really deconstruct that persona of the only way that I'll find success or love or admiration from anyone is if I'm really helping out and throwing people a bone and giving things away from free and taking on extra clients and doing sessions that are 2 hours long instead of the 1 hour. And then it's I've just been got shit kicked, basically, had no energy or passion for what I did, and it was all because I thought that was the only way that I was of any kind of value to anyone.
And that is that you are just trying to be the superhero you wish somebody was going to be for you.
Exactly.
So that is perfect. That is exactly where 85% of our population is struggling, and that we don't know how else to trust our experiences because we have been told they don't matter. They don't exist. It's not reality.
Is that ever the case? I would say that's another thing that goes on here. When people look at my life, I think there's this, not even just now, this is the whole way through, that there's it wasn't that bad. Both my parents were together, and I had these siblings, and we didn't all of us get along, and there's not a lot of anger or hate between our family, but it's because they never spoke. And I think it just looks really cushy and exciting and nice. And then I'm I feel when I struggle, people are would you shut the fuck up? You don't have any real problems. And it's you can drown in the goddamn ocean or you can drown in 3 inches of water, but you're still dead. It doesn't matter. The pain or the hurt or the heaviness feels the same.
Absolutely. And you know what? This is what I've learned. Taking our view of an experience, humans have to want somebody else's reality, okay? Because people don't do enough inner reflection or have something to really show them the reason why their experience had to be that reality. So everybody always looks on the other side of the fence or where the grass is greener, but nobody has the time or effort or the abilities or even the seed genetics to have that had or happened that way.
God, that's so true.
So absolutely, every single human being should not take it personally that somebody wants to have it on that way that somebody else had it, because that is the only way they saw the outcome of the experience.
Right.
And that's where they talk about in the whole process of dreams and manifesting. One of the gurus, he said, I wish that the dreams that you wish for never come true. And everybody's like all appalled and like, what are you talking about? Because you have no idea what really is for you to come, because you've never experienced the abundance or that real raw experience the way that it's meant to be yet.
Right.
So you have no other way to think of it because it's never happened to you yet.
Wow.
So then I was like, holy shit, because everybody wants the lotto ticket numbers. Everybody wants the Starbucks coffee or the chef in their kitchen or, you know, these different realities of my dream list, right? No, the dream is so much bigger than you can even think of.
Exactly.
That's why when it happens, it's so real and raw. And for you.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, yeah, that's really powerful, actually. And then something else I think people don't realize, like even thinking about the lotto ticket, like with great power comes great responsibility, and everybody just seriously leaves that part of the equation out. Like, I don't know, I think about even like our experience. Like I was like, oh yeah, I just want to be making money. I want to have lots of clients at my disposal. Like I want to have things flow really nicely for me. But like with that abundance or with that influence comes like endless emails, endless texts, endless people reaching out. And it's like, that's not a bad thing, but it's a part of the dream or a part of the power or responsibility of holding that frequency that everyone forgets to dream about. And then I see people all the time trying to replicate what they see, but they only see that one side of the dream. Not realizing like the blood, sweat, and tears or like the hard work that comes on the other side of it. And that's why I think so many people start something and then give it up. They're like, oh shit, this was harder than I thought it would be, or this is more than I thought it would be. And they just, you know, they're looking at dreams like the rose-colored glasses version of it.
100%.
And I think at some point I'm going to cross a threshold where we're standing in that, where everything's ebbing and flowing and it's more than you ever thought would be possible. And like, it's all these things actualized, but there's almost like this initiation through to that.
Well, they have to, because if you're going to be a gatekeeper, how are you going to preach, teach, and nurture that level or that infant or that experience if you've never been through that before?
Totally.
And another thing, too, out of that is that we think that these experiences owe us. That's another problem. We always think that it has to give us everything all at once.
Yes.
And that we don't know how to walk yet. We don't know how to experience that. And that is, we are not being good stewards of that expression.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. If I would have just like boomeranged from being a baby in step one to even this level, which I would still consider myself like someone who's like in elementary school, like if I was to just jump from even like kindergarten, whatever grade I'm in now, 3, I still wouldn't be able to handle what's happening now. Like you need those steps in order to like integrate the knowledge of how to like handle that.
I remember, and that's why so many people are those half-assed people, right? Okay, so there's like that half-assed mechanic, or that half-assed carpenter, or that half-assed reader, because everybody always wants to be titled as something, right? And a lot of healers get caught in this loophole, is that they know what to do with their work. They know how to do the guidance and do all these extra things, but they are financially broke. They're in a never stable relationship. They have health issues up the get-go, or they just have nothing professional and put together because they don't even believe in their own selves, but it's good enough to just throw it together and make us a cash.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right? Because at the end of the day, none of us have these corporations and big time shows and all this kind of stuff, because you cannot control being the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where so many people are trying to take ownership of all this excess need and want and control. And we totally are just throwing it to the sidelines because we think we have every person walking into our office has to be a certain way, how we heal it, do it, be it, and see it. And we got to do it this way, and it has to look that way, because the only way my clients are going to take it is if we do it that way. Being an actual messenger, sometimes you have to trip a person to trigger them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get into those processes and you have to take ownership of that, a lot of us just cower it away and say, no, that wasn't me, it was God, and now all these other problems, or, you know, it was what I was sourced to, and then we hide away.
Yep.
And it robs us of what really needs to take place in that, because then it's false ownership.
Oh, for sure. And that's something that, like, if you don't accept that part of, like, responsibility, or that lesson was destined for you, or whatever it was, like, you can't heal it if you don't see that bigger picture.
It was interesting because there was another person that I was listening to, and they said an average person has about 20 or more inventions, ideas, or business plans, or something that could change the world.
Wow.
That were given to them in their lifetime. And the problem is that a lot of people, literally 95% of the people, do not act upon them because we don't feel it can be worth what it's given. So then that dream is given to somebody else. So
Wow.
Have you ever heard of somebody saying, oh, I invented that, and then they patent it, and that's what happened?
Yeah.
That's what happens. The dream just goes to the next receiving sponge.
Wow. That's crazy. And I've actually heard of that, like, reading some channeled messages from actually, like, Dolores Cannon in hypnosis, that, like, otherworldly beings have helped influence humanity, but what they do is they drop the idea in the air, and they just hope that humanity chooses, without interfering with their free will, to clue into that idea. And it's like, that's why sometimes there's, like, multiple people that have like invented or discovered the same thing at the same time. So it literally is like a thought or an idea. It has so much life or energy or frequency to it that it literally does travel around in the atmosphere for people to collect. Someone thought of it. If you're not going to pursue it, it gets pushed on to the next person. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's why this is starting to become so unique and beautiful. I used to wish I was older, because then I thought I would have more authority and all this stuff. Now I'm just like, hold the brakes. Are we going to be ready in time for all of this? Like, is everything done and lined up and all of it? Because this is the time now.
Yep.
None of this stuff was going to be able to crack open. They were just trying to get this in the 90s, right? The 70s. The 50s, the 20s, the 1800s, before Christ, the dinosaurs, whatever the case is, there was always some sort of expansion of what this all was supposed to turn out like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it is now, again, round so many digits, we probably can't even name them, cycle on seeing, okay, what do these people have in their back pockets this round? Like, what game of Risk are they going to play this round to conquer and divide?
Exactly. Yeah, God, conquer and divide, yeah.
Right?
Ugh.
So, yeah.
It's a mess out there.
Just praying that everybody just starts realizing how beautiful and important all of this change is for ourselves to be real now. It don't matter your blood type. It don't matter your skin type. It don't matter how you type. You just need to be the person that really needs to be there now.
I know. And just like be your just like realist, truest self, and like do the self-discovery, and then like stepping into it. Like it sounds like a lot of work, but like it just takes one new decision, one new choice, one new avenue to explore, and it just sort of like makes itself available to you as you look that way.
I think the key out of that, what I've learned on my self solo exploration here, is that we don't take enough time to reflect and integrate and introspect our experiences from the past, and we rat race into the future.
100%. And like it's one of those things where it's like you can only run from it for so long until it like slaps you in the face, and you have to look at it. And that's what happened to me. Like it wasn't that I just honestly wasn't aware of the things that I dealt with, because again, all those chirps in the community, like, oh yeah, your childhood was awesome, and like, yeah, typical farm upbringing, and you're like, yeah, like I know, this was good. And then I never felt the need to like look into the past and actually look at it, because I didn't know there was a problem until it like slapped me in the face, and I had like no choice but to like do that deep diving. So it's like, you might just be well pressed to start the process on your own before waiting for it to slap you in the face, because I can tell you this, I could have lived without trying to start a business, quitting my job, COVID, and then also trying to integrate and heal my own past. Like that was a lot. And I hope that doesn't happen to anybody else.
And see, I was the opposite of you. I knew what was going on in our family farm, and all those things were so detrimental because nobody was willing to take ownership, heal, or let go of the need, greed, and control. And so us kids we had to be the chosen ones and change this and clear the lines and all this stuff like our parents told us to do and be, and trained us to do this, but then they hated us for changing it all and falling apart and, destroying the whole fundamentals and foundations, and then ran around the countryside because I had to do something that was ag and, good community repertoire, because, you got to keep the name up because nobody else was willing to help you through that. So then I went through this, go through the old boys school because you always were, grown up as a tomboy, be a man, do all these things, get sexually abused, lose contracts and jobs and things like that because the business owner wanted you to be their girlfriend, and other wives and people were jealous of you, and you were just so burnt out. And then I fell upon going into a total opposite place of work as a flower shop arranger and cafe cook, and just needed a space to just settle. And all the answers were there in my journals if I would have fucking read them and understood what I was trying to scream out of my soul. And I was just running because I didn't feel safe. I didn't know where else to go.
Right. Yeah.
And then it hits you in the face. And then you're just like, no, that's okay. I'll do something else. Right? And we just keep going through all this stuff until it finally shakes down and says, this is what you need to do. That's it.
Yeah. That's definitely like the opposite of my experience. We're like backwards, like different.
Yeah.
But either way, still not a good time.
And you know what's funny though? Everything though, what they do to get your attention is either they will magically heal your body, or a phenomenon would happen, or that makes you money to get your attention. And then you just start chasing this carrot around the racetrack.
Yes.
Instead of just seeing, okay, you got my attention, what am I supposed to do with it, right? And invest or go or educate or release or become something, right? Then all of a sudden you just keep repeating the same cycle until it runs out. And you're like, why is it a drought?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so
just
true.
Like, dude, there was only enough cup of water so that you keep moving forward, onward, y'all.
Yeah, and once I figured that out, it was like a game changer. I would, I don't know, it's just being a frontier, right? Like, I would say that you probably feel the same. It's like being the first person in your entire generation to have to, like, explore these different avenues that I'm aware of anyway, that actually took the time to heal or self-reflect or follow their dreams. It's like being the frontier. It's like it's you have to learn the hard way. Like, I just had to learn the hard way. I did not have a mentor or someone to look to be like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing right now? So I was definitely just chasing the carrot, being like, okay, I took a course, now I'm just going to do this forever. And then you just chase the carrot around until finally you're like, well, this isn't working. I must need to look a little bit deeper or figure out what my gifts are or what I'm supposed to be doing as my own unique imprint in this experience. And then I was like, okay, I got to look into this. I got to heal this. I got to integrate this. And then it's just like, yeah, the rat race just ends. And there's like that faith and that like confidence even that you're just like in that place.
And that's where we all feel like failures, because then all of a sudden we're like, oh, the dream faded and it was never meant to be. And, you know, I tried it so many times. And it's just like, no, you didn't. You just repeated it, changed the colors, and said it was the same thing over and over and again.
Exactly. And I didn't like realize that at the beginning. So like I was just like, yeah, anyone can do this. Anyone can just start a business. And then now that it's been like 2 years and I've watched myself say this to people, well, it's still true, but they're making that mistake. Like, they don't want to dive any deeper, or they don't want to open up to their realest self, and they don't want to go to that next phase. And it's like, it gets more uncomfortable every time you step into a place that you've never stood before.
I have had to go live Victoria, live my best high life experience, to sleeping in my car, to feeling like I don't know what I'm doing because there was only 2 people that came to my course, to having a sold out show, standing ovations, all of that, because if it gave it all the time, you become numb.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And so that's where, this is all the learning lessons to ask yourself. It's the horse round pen, right? It's like training a dog or the cat, right? You are training yourself to be the experience, no matter what case comes up. If it's going to be true and you're going to stick to your guns, then you're always going to be that person in the end.
Yes, and my spirit guide, exactly, and my spirit guides gave me that like exact analogy once. They used the beach in Miami for some reason. They're like, you know, the beach in Miami is such a beautiful place, but it's like littered with people because it was only a 5-minute drive to get there. It was so easy to you to get there. Everyone's doing it. It doesn't really feel as magical as maybe it truly is. But if you have to like take a 1-hour drive and climb up a mountain, and then you're suddenly at this sacred cavern and it's just you and your tried and true there, it's like 10 times more appreciative because you had to like climb that mountain and like traverse that long journey, and suddenly it feels like you've earned it. And they're like, the view might be very similar, but there's like, do you see the difference of like having to go through that initiation process and go through that movement, that it actually means something. So if it does come easy, it literally doesn't mean shit to us. If we could just snap our fingers and be like, oh, I earned $1 million, we're so like, oh, we're just like, humanity can sometimes be the worst. We're like, well, can I get a 2 million? We just want more, and we don't appreciate what we've got because it was just too damn easy. So it's like, yeah, like, it doesn't come overnight. And it shouldn't.
Makes us so disposable. That's why we die. That's why we live a life and we die at the end of it, because we're just being students all along the way till we become topsoils. Yep. And that's the only on top thing we'll ever be.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And it's just, it's like Earth is like incarnating, and Earth and everything you're doing, as like trivial as it makes your whole life seem, it's just like you studying.
Yes, absolutely. And I got rid of my know-it-all personality, because that was the only way that you got status and seniority in my household. And the thing of being a gifted knower, you were just like, yeah, I know. 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 And so then everybody gets triggered because, like, how do you know? Tell me, kid. Like, and then, so instead, I've learned just to flow. And what is being invited into me saying it or showing it or being a part of it, then that's when I express it. But we don't have to go and just give it all this filled out presentation, because other people don't know it and they're just learning and they feel less than because of what you can be experiencing. But it doesn't mean that we're all masters at it all.
Oh, for sure. And like that's something, like that was a hard lesson I learned right quick pretty early, actually. Like I was like, oh, I know stuff and look at me in the Akashic records, I'm an expert at this. And then like reading everyone's Akashic record and being like, shit, people are gifted in these very like diverse categories, and it's like we all are a know-it-all of something. We all have those ideas or those gifts to birth into this world. Whether we choose to do so or not doesn't mean that we should be passing judgment. Like, it's just everybody has something. Everyone's a part of the divine. We're cut from the same cloth. So like I just had to bury that hatchet like pretty early, because I was like, wow, this is not going to work if I'm trying to compete with every goddamn Akashic record that I'm reading. Like,
right. But then so many, and I know why the healing world struggles, because what happens is that everybody states that their words, their programs, their ways are all going to be different, and it's going to change your world, and you're going to feel healed, and you have gifts too, and you have gifts too, and everybody has gifts, and it just feels like a show. The only way you can trust and do diligently be a part of that process and change is the people that walk it, talk it, work with it, and are a part of it. Yes, we're all human beings. We fuck up along the ways. You see great leaders fall. You see, situations crumble. But that's because it's about the process of building something 10 times stronger or something 10 times bigger to hold the whole experience along the way.
Yeah, that's like really well said. And it's hard to discern. The spiritual world is getting like bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think it's like awesome, because I know that there's, with every like imposter or someone who's like the half-assed mechanic, the half-assed reader, the half-assed spiritual, there's always going to be somebody else who's like, that's their destiny, right? That's what they were here to do, is to uplift this collective and do this like new earth thing. So it's like, I don't know, with like the shitty, comes something good. So like I'm personally still excited about it, and I think having this community that's unregulated, it puts some onus on like the people to like use their intuition, listening to their inner knowing. Like, does this person really feel real to me? Can they bring me what I need? Do I feel connected? Do I feel excited? And like, humanity is so used to being regulated by like Big Brother and the government and telling you what you should think and how you should think and where you need to go next. And I think this is like part of the undoing of all these old systems that don't serve us. It's like humanity has to start thinking for itself and being like, is this my reader? Is this true about this? Is this this? Is this that? And it's like, it's needed. Like, we do not need to be hand holding everybody, because like you said earlier, like people need to learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. And it comes back to that whole concept. There's no such thing as wrong or right.
Oh, yeah.
We are just here to experience, because all those wrongs and all those famous people or your role models that you love so much and dearly and spend all your money to get their swag or their promotions or go to their reveals or buy their products, it's because the wrongs made it into a right experience to connect with who and what they are, and then we live happily ever after.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
So I struggle, absolutely. I go back into my childhood, I go back into my business, I go back into myself, and I say, how the fuck did I think that this is all going to be good? But when I get to have days where I just get to smile up at the sun and know I'm safe, it makes it right, because I would have never smiled to the sun that day.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's so true.
It just ripens your bounty so much more into the flavors, the experience, the love, the light, all of those things. Why Hippy Dippies and the rest of the world has said it for years, it's because it's the highest frequency of it all. It's the biggest mumbo jumbo out of it all, because in the dark there's always light.
Yep. That's powerful.
And I think that's why what we do today, no matter the thick and thin of where we've gone through in everybody's lives and ways, how can you tell somebody that they're not that person because they haven't had 10 extra years of just shit kicking the box when they just woke up and they're doing it perfectly the now? And that's where a lot of people get stuck, because we created a society, like you said, the Rick and Mortar stage of just saying, well, since you passed the test, now you can be the doctor, instead of allowing somebody who's intuitively connected and can be that doctor but can't read or write properly.
Yeah.
And fail the test because of anxiety.
I 100%, agree with that. And then I'm seeing like this divide in my world right now where it's like the practitioners who are kind of old school and have been doing this forever, like, that have been doing this since the 80s or 90s, seeing these little like young people come up on the scene. And I'm talking like, I even see people in my work that are like 20, 21 years old that have like had their own business like rocking and rolling for quite some time now. And there's like this threat all of a sudden, like, you didn't go through 15 years of school to learn hypnotherapy the way I learned it back in the 80s. And they're like, we need to regulate this field. And it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
These people woke up early. Like, you can't, I'm not saying that someone who's 21 years old has it all figured out, but just let them do what they're doing. Like, they have a life and a process too. Just leave people alone, really. Like, literally. We can't just regulate everyone who's done something different. And it's like, you see this generational gap starting to form, and it's like, it's off-putting, because I feel like you and I might be somewhere in the middle almost. Like, we're kind of like, we've been doing, I don't even know, are we even the middle? Are we the newbies? I don't know.
I do feel we are the middle, because this is what I've talked about, and I've been a supervisor and always about hierarchy my entire childhood. The problem is that we have totally missed the rite of passage, that the elders feel acknowledged. The kids, had a little bumps and lumps, and we brushed off our bruised knees, and we got back on, and now everybody's happy, and then we feel fulfilled because the legacies go on. And the problem is that when somebody walks in new to town, right, with the spurs clanking, absolutely it gets everybody's attention. And that's why TikTok, the Instagram, all the social media platforms, that all of a sudden the whole world is now being an entire encyclopedia of psychiatrists, that we just all talk about our life problems and we talk about how we get it. Well, yeah, everybody's losing their shit because nobody's being acknowledged for the work that created it. And that's where I get to those points where, how did an entire nation that would attend Woodstock lost so much, and we have so much hatred and disconnect in what we do now? How did we miss droves of people, thousands of people, going and doing these experiences and changing the world and doing marches and rallies and protests, that now we all sit and watch the news and freak out because you didn't learn that, so we're not going to do that step together?
I know. And I heard a line once, and it's like, this is usually the phase of evolution for people. So, and this is like, I think actually like an indigenous teaching, but I read it in a book. It was like Channel the Universe. And I thought it was really beautiful. So when kids come in, they're so fresh-faced, and they remember, right? They're still so connected. So we're supposed to like listen to the children, listen to the youth, listen to the people. And then it's like they become teens and like, you know, the people that would be at Woodstock, and they're like still fighting the rebellion and still doing this. But all the while in the background, they're taught to, you know, like in school, memorize this, memorize that. This is how life works. And they teach you what to think, and they indoctrinate with all these things. And then eventually the rebellion starts to die because no one's listening to the people that are in that young phase. And then it's like the line was, what you're taught to memorize, you memorialize, and then you morph into the thing that you were rebelling against all along because no one listened.
Oh, deep.
Isn't that crazy? And I was like, that's so true. And then you see these people in that older generation, and I'm not like saying that they don't deserve credit, because like really the things that they've created are like the things that we've been studying and reading and channeling, and then we're turning it into our thing. But it's like, you see where that disconnect happened. Like, when I see someone younger, ever since I've read that, or even just like because I'm so like still fresh-faced kind of into stepping into this, when I see someone else stepping into it, I'm like, yes, like, let's do this. I know you still have mountains to climb, so do I, like, but like, we can fight the rebellion. We don't have to be forced to like memorialize this life that doesn't work. And I swear that that's like what happened with the couple of people that I'm specifically referring to, that I've seen them say these kind of hateful things to like the younger generation. I'm like, oh, like you're totally indoctrined now. Like, you ate that, and you would have revolted against it if you were still in your 20s or in your, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's exactly what happens.
You know the truth about a true elder when it comes into those stages that they pick up the shovel next to the little one and help them along their way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, is a gatekeeper to what experience has to be a part of that.
For sure. That makes perfect sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, as soon as they're a lecturer and a beat downer, you know that that's a wounded child just trying to steal back their own innocence.
Yes.
Of what was robbed from them.
I love that. It gave me goosebumps. Yeah, and it's so true, because they said in like, this feels like, yeah, like also like that elder, like indigenous teaching, but it was in obviously a different book, but it was from God or from the source, right? So it's like a true teaching, that like children get frustrated and they cry, but they're still so connected. Like, being in this restrictive body is still so frustrating to them, and we must be more gentle with the children and the youth, because it's really hard when you're still connected to be stuck in this very restrictive experience. And I was like, whoa, boom, like, that's so cool. Like, I love that. And like, even, you know, there's like the millennials and the Gen Z coming up, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of tension between the two groups, but you see it a little while, and I'm like, millennials, can you just not? Like, you know what it was like to be on the other end of that? So don't do it. We need to unite with them. And like, honestly, like TikTok and stuff, like, there's some funny shit on the internet from the Gen Zers right now, and I swear to God, they've come to provide comic relief from like this really heavy time. And I'm like, can we just celebrate that? Like, can we not with these people? Like,
but we have to remember that is what our parents and that generation, that's what they wanted to be. They want to be those like jokesters in the community. That's why when you look back at all those time eras, it was all about the music, it was all about the party, it was all about the fashion and what you did, and it was the experience, right? Where it came into those older generations, where it's the baby boomers, they just were there to survive and thrive, right? Like, they went from famine to feast, and then all of a sudden indoctrination started. So then that's where this like release of children that were funny and just there for a good time, not a long time. You know, that's where our parents and those generations struggled, because then we came along and we're like, watch this, we'll backflip twice as long, right? And then they're just like threatened, 100% threatened. And then these kids that are coming up now, they're just like, watch out, old balls, this is what we do, boom. And then they're just like doing their own thing.
I know. I wish I could remember. Like, the generation of the millennials is like considered the rebels. So we came and like shook the pot, and we're like, this isn't working, you guys. F you. And then I don't know exactly what the Gen Z is, but you know, it's something that would follow a rebellion that like comes and just takes back the like. I think we shook it up. Like the millennials like shook it up, and then they're coming to like finish it off. They're like, no, we're not taking any of this goddamn shit anymore, and they just like crush it.
They're just like, we're going out with fireworks, baby.
Yeah.
We're like a wrecking ball.
And like I love it because we know that we chose to incarnate in this timeline, and like I'm all about the rebellion. Like I told my mom when I was like 8, I was probably going to go to jail for protesting in my life. Like I chose to incarnate as one of the rebels. Like, and it's like, we could have been the baby boomers or we could have been the Gen Zers, but it's like, no, we chose this because this was like in our alignment or in our lesson. So it's like, why do we look to other generations and like criticize the choices that they've made? Like,
literally. I so deeply connect on that because that's where we just forget what it all takes to be a team in this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I just am thankful for all that take the time to do the work, to be a part of it, who, you know, said sorry when they needed to and said fuck you when they needed to. That is the key out of all of this, because once this all reveals and relieves what we've all been desperately trying to get to, then we can sing Kumbaya, I'll save the whales.
Exactly. And like I'm all about that. Like I just pray the day does not come where I decide to memorialize the shit I was taught to memorize because it was junk.
And I think that's the gift out of our brains and trauma and PTSD and drugs and all of this stuff. It's because it's just whatever you need to absorb as a sponges and encapsulize or diversify. It's whatever you're going to take with you along the way with it, and then make room for more. Like, we're at Earth. We are at the buffet of the most beautiful little nugget in the star-dusted galaxies of many and beyond and bars, to be gifted and place our heavy gravity-weighted feet and sagging tits and droopy asses as time goes on, right? So
yes,
walk it, gravitate with it, and just learn from it. That's all we can fucking do. That's what I've learned. Bottom line is that's what I've learned. Just go with it.
Yes, I agree. And like resistance just slows everything down, like honestly.
Yep. We gotta contain our fine, fiery asses away from the situations at hand, and I understand that there's fire retardants and fire extinguishers, but we do what we can.
Oh, so true. So true.
Beautiful. Well, thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome, and I